Hi everyone, this is the next video for Romeo and Juliet. This is Act 2, Scene 1. In this scene, Romeo's friends have now left the party and are looking for Romeo, but Romeo has decided to remain behind in the Capulet orchard. As he hides from his friends, they joke about his love for Rosaline and they're kind of mocking him and think that the reason why he's disappeared is because he's still searching for this woman that he previously was in love with. And of course we know that by this point he's met Juliet, and in fact he's no longer pining for Rosaline. So in this scene, it's late on the Sunday night, we're outside the Capulet's orchard, enter Romeo alone. Romeo says, "Can I go forward where my heart is here? Turn back, dull earth, and find thy centre out." So here he's making the point that he will not be separated from Juliet. He decides to remain behind with her and he will not be separated with her. He says, "My heart is still here." And Romeo withdraws from the scene. At this point, Benvolio and Mercutio enter and begin calling for Romeo, trying to see if they can find him. "Romeo, my cousin Romeo, Romeo! He is wise, and on my life hath stolen him home to bed. He ran this way and leapt this orchard wall. Call, good Mercutio." Mercutio says, "Nay, I'll conjure too. Romeo, humours, madman, passion, lover, appear thou in the likeness of a sigh. Speak but one rhyme, and I am satisfied. Cry but I me, pronounce but love and dove. Speak to my gossip Venus one fair word, one nickname for her purblind son and heir. Young Abraham Cupid, he that shot so trim when King Cophetua loved the beggar maid. He heareth not, he stirreth not, he moveth not. The ape is dead, and I must conjure him. I conjure thee by Rosaline's bright eyes, by her high forehead and her scarlet lip, by her fine foot and straight leg and quivering thigh, and the domains that there adjacent lie, that in thy likeness thou appear to us." Okay, so let's go back to that speech there by Mercutio. And you can see there are a couple of quotations that I've highlighted here. And they've all got one thing in common. If you look at these quotations, "I'll conjure too, appear thou in the likeness of a sigh, I conjure thee by Rosaline's bright eyes." And all of these quotations have this idea of conjuring, of magic. And so in all of these quotations, what Mercutio is doing is he is aligning love with magic, the idea that it's deceptive, that it's hard to capture and control. But he's also poking fun at Romeo. And he does this by repeatedly using references to love and quite stereotypical views of love. So this idea of being quite lovesick, cry but I, me, pronounce but love and dove. So he's talking about kind of love letters and reciting proclamations of love. And so he's teasing Romeo for his kind of idealised view of love in the way that he did before. But he's also talking about Rosaline's appearance. Remember, he thinks that Romeo is lovesick because of Rosaline. And so he starts off with physical aspects of her beauty, her high forehead and her scarlet lip and her fine foot, before moving it on to more kind of sexualized ideas. And this is something that Mercutio does repeatedly, is he keeps aligning love and sex together. For him, love is something quite fickle, something quite sexualized, something quite physical, whereas for Romeo it's something quite idealized and something that he really worships and pines for. So we've got those two ideas, that idea of love, but also that idea of sex, and love being that kind of fickle sexual thing. That's what Mercutio strives to talk about often. Benvolio then warns Mercutio and says, "Listen, if he hear thee, thou will anger him." So if he hears you mocking him, he's going to be angry with you. Mercutio says, "This cannot anger him. 'Twould anger him to raise a spirit in his mistress's circle." And this again is that sexualized language that Mercutio uses so regularly. So this is a reference to magic, the magic circle, but equally his mistress's circle, and to raise a spirit. If you have a look at the annotations at the side there, you can see what those words mean. It's got sexual connotations, it's an innuendo, it's got a hidden meaning underneath it. So it's as though he's talking about magic, but really he's talking about sex. And lots of Mercutio's language has that double entendre, that innuendo. You can see the spelling of it there, I-N-N-U-E-N-D-O, to kind of align continuously love with sex and desire. He's constantly undermining the value of love and instead reducing it back to something to do with sex. "Of some strange nature, letting it there stand till she had laid it and conjured it down. There was some spite, my invocation is fair and honest in his mistress's name. I conjure only but to raise him up. Benvolio says, "Come, he hath hid himself among these trees, to be consorted with the humorous night, And there's another reference here to night, which I'll talk about in a moment. But before we get onto that part, let's talk about this next line. Blind is his love, and best befits the dark. So there's two things I want to draw your attention to here. Blind is his love. Again, we've got this metaphor as love being distortion. If you remember that quotation from earlier, love is a smoke raised on a fume of sighs. That idea that love distorts things. It blinds lovers to reality. But then we've also got this humorous night and best befits the dark. Those two images there, that repeated motif of darkness and nighttime. Romeo is comforted and protected by darkness. And later on in Romeo and Juliet, you'll see that there is this kind of duplicity of night. Night can be something that's threatening and dangerous, but it's also something that provides Romeo and Juliet with safety and secrecy at the same time. Mercutio finishes, if love be blind, love cannot hit the mark. So he's refusing to accept this kind of idealised version of love. For him, remember, love is this physical thing that he can pinpoint. Now will he sit under a medlar tree and wish his mistress were that kind of fruit, as maids call medlars when they laugh alone. O Romeo, that she were, oh that she were an open arse, thou a poppering pear. Romeo, good night, out of my truckle bed. This field bed is too cold for me to sleep. Come, shall we go? Go then, for 'tis in vain to seek him here that means not to be found. And again, just before we finish here, we've got more imagery to do with fertility, sexuality, reproduction, fruit, hair. And this is an image that will come through again and again. We've got imagery of fertility that we've seen already about the kind of sexual elements of love. And often Mercutio is the character who presents that version of love. So this is quite a short scene with only a couple of key quotations, but we'll stop there.